Well, cool, guys. Let's go ahead and get started here. We've got attendees continuing to trickle in. We're at the top of the hour. So for those of you that are just joining us, thanks for taking part in our continuing sessions on transitioning to live online. We've got Sarah Jane McQueen from Candlefox and John Mitchell here from Arlo. A little bit about myself, and I'll hand over the mic to both John and Sarah Jane to give a little bit of background about themselves. I'm the Arlo Customer Success Manager for the Greater APAC region. Most of you guys have probably been in touch with my counterpart in the UK, Ezra Fermanis. I'm filling in for him today to walk you through this stuff and kind of play moderator for the panel discussion today. John, you want to give a little bit of background here?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. So I actually founded Arlo about 10 years ago. Personally, I'm really passionate about the education sector, and I've got a real love for technology. So it's a great mix to be running a business like Arlo. If you don't already know, Arlo is a training management platform specifically designed for training providers, people who sell training. And we operate at global operations. So we've got an office there in the UK and an office in New Zealand, which gives us really good coverage globally. So yeah, looking forward to today's session and the questions that come in. Thanks, Ben.
Sure, yeah, thanks for that, John. And Sarah Jane, hand over the mic to you for a little bit of background, if we could.
Great, thanks, Ben. And good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Sarah Jane McQueen, and I'm the General Manager for Candlefox in the UK. Similarly to Arlo, we have operations, and our company was born out of Australia and New Zealand, and we launched the UK business a couple of years ago. And our website is coursesonline.co.uk, and we partner with about 50 training providers, ranging from niche brands such as the Institute of Supply Chain and Management through to more professional development brands like ICS and Hudson, through to a whole heap of university access institutions and also universities. But we work with only premium brands who really offer amazing content and look after their students and really believe in a great student journey. And similarly to Arlo, today I'll be sharing a snapshot from our COVID-19 student survey and also giving you some practical tips for student recruitment during this time and looking to the future.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks for that, Sarah. So quick kind of agenda overview. We're going to be running through a little bit of an industry update and hearing both from John and kind of the training provider aspect, and then Sarah Jane on the marketplace side of things. And from then we'll start to dive into the live Q&A. We've got a couple of questions teed up that we've received in response to our initial email invitation. So you'll find on the Zoom toolbar, there is a spot for you guys to start filling in some questions. You can upvote each other's questions, and we'll start to queue those up for the live Q&A taking place beyond this industry update. John, over to you to kind of take us through what's happening.
Yeah, thanks. So if you didn't already pick up, there's a little button down the bottom called Q&A. That's where you post your questions or in the chat. Yeah, look, we've got some information. We went out to the marketplace with our customer base in the market to find out what the impact of COVID-19 was. We actually asked a bunch of questions up front when it really first started to happen. And then we ran a survey a little bit later, or more recently, I guess you could say. So the initial response was really interesting. Pretty much everyone recognised that there was going to be an impact due to COVID, but I don't think anyone really understood the full impact or significance of what it would have in the coming months. So the initial response, as you can see on that chart there, was to cancel or defer their face-to-face courses. So 40% were looking to do that. There are a few of them that were a little bit more savvy, I guess, now that we reflect on it. And they already looked to move on to live online and transition to e-learning and a bit of both. But the majority were just looking to hold off. So actually, before I show you the next slide, what we're going to do is give you a live poll. So if you can just post that poll, please, Ben, and we'll take a look at it. So this is the question we asked in our survey. So let's just ask the question now for all the audience. So what modes of training delivery do you currently use or you plan to use in the next 12 months? So you can see a list there, just tick the ones that are relevant for you in the next 12 months. Blended learning, if you didn't already know, is about a mixture of different elements to a course. So you might have an e-learning course at the start, you might have a face-to-face session, there may be even a live online session, followed by access to resources, maybe a forum. So that's blended, if you didn't already know, and then VR at the bottom there. So how are we going, Ben? Are we getting some responses there?
Yeah, we're about 70% of the way through. Give it another couple of seconds.
But this is just an example, actually, of what you can do with Zoom and how you can make a session really interactive. You might have already known you can put your hand up and you can clap. There's a whole lot of features in Zoom that allow you to have a really interactive and collaborative and intimate relationship with the audience. So that's what we're just trying to demonstrate here. So I think we're about to get the responses, and there we go. Interesting, actually. So we ran the same session this morning in New Zealand and Australia. Pretty similar results with blended there. So in New Zealand there, it was, in Australia, it was about 77%. So a lot of you are looking to move into blending. But equally, it's interesting to see there's still a lot of people who are going to go back to face-to-face, and live online is strong as well. So yeah, good mix there, really. So if I now show you, we'll close that down and let's have a look at the results from our more recent survey. So you want to change the slide there. Okay, so like I mentioned, a lot of training providers have already pivoted. We're seeing pretty much the majority of training providers now have actually made that pivot. So 83% are looking to adopt live online course delivery over the likes of Zoom. 75% to adopt blended, so that was pretty close to what we had here in the audience. So about 75% looking to go beyond just simply going back to face-to-face or live online and actually bringing in a blended component of their training, and then 62% just doing self-paced e-learning to fill the gap. Okay, so we'll go into the next slide. So what we wanted to see is those training providers pivoted, but we also want to see, is it actually been successful? Are they getting registrations on this new course delivery method? And the answer is resounding yes, and it's very clear. So this chart here shows the number of registrations that we've received on the Arlo platform since COVID. You can see the low numbers in the first two charts are actually prior to COVID, then COVID hits. And then straight away, we see this real strong growth in terms of new registrations for live online courses, so about 12 times. I think this has really been influenced in terms of the adoption of this type of delivery method through the impact of Zoom. I think, I imagine just about everyone on this call will have been on a Zoom call at some point in the last 5 weeks. Zoom has just taken off. I think the numbers that we're looking at, about 300 million people on a day using Zoom or participating in a Zoom session. So I think that's just made the adoption or the readiness to learn through a live interactive environment like this the more palatable, and I guess people have got the technology now to be able to do it effectively too. Okay, so 30 times increase for them. So what does the future look like for training providers? So we asked them, okay, is it going to be back to normal after COVID? What is normal? And the response was pretty clear. And if you listen to any of the business advisors out there, there will be a new normal, as they say. So when we go back after COVID, there's a strong feeling that things will change, that the market won't be the same, and training will certainly change. Same sort of theme there. So a real focus on live online e-learning, but blended. So I think what courses were traditionally just one session, classroom session, or maybe 2 sessions, will become a learning journey where you've got lots of different interactions. It's a whole blended experience before the course, during the course, after the course. And I think you're going to see a lot more encouragement of networking through social media after the course as well, through those registrants who participate in the course and then go on to build relationships beyond it. So we'll do another live poll here. So if we bring up the next poll, thanks, Ben. Great. So we just want to ask a simple question here in terms of e-learning. So how do you plan to use e-learning in the future? So does your business currently use or plan to use e-learning? So sold individually as a standalone e-learning module, sold as a subscription where you pay a certain fee per month and have access to a range of material, catalogue of material, part of your blended courses some other way, or you potentially don't know at this point. So go ahead and select some options there and let's have a look at the results. They're coming through there, Ben?
Yeah, we're about 2/3 of the way there.
Good, and this was really easy for Ben to set up, by the way. So he set up all these questions prior to the session today, and so he's just able to press a button and they come up straight away. Good. Okay, so results out there. You can see there that the winner is integration with existing courses, so part of that blended learning experience. So 65% of you think that the way you're going to use e-learning is to incorporate it with your existing face-to-face or live online courses. Really interesting there. Sold it individually as a standalone, so it's still quite a lot of demand there, 55%, and sold as a subscription. I will call out the subscription. I do think it is potentially the future, but it's certain verticals where I think this is going to grow. So I think the subscription model is going to be specifically relevant to, say, CPD, continuing professional development, where you've got lawyers or accountants or teachers where they need to do a certain amount of training each year. And so I can imagine, and we're already seeing this in the US and other markets, where they're willing to pay a set fee per month and have access to a catalogue of e-learning so that they can just access that material and complete courses to gain their CPD points. So I think watch out for that space. It's certainly not for every sector, but there'll be some sectors where that sort of Netflix, Spotify model is going to become more relevant. Okay, so that's me. Thanks, Ben. That's my brief introduction. So I'll hand it over to yourself and Sarah Jane.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, John. And as the data look points to, and kind of what we've all been experiencing in the last 6 weeks, the market has shifted really quickly. So it's been great to see how quick of a pivot the training providers have been able to make, and that the market, the end user, the student is responding, in stride there. So we'd love to hear from you, Sarah, and kind of the industry overview from the Candlefox perspective.
Great, thanks, Ben. Thanks, John. So we were interested in surveying our database to understand kind of student sentiment during these uncertain times to help inform our strategy and also to help all of our partners. And I think reassuringly for everyone here, what our results have found is that the propensity to begin studying has increased over the last 2 months when we compare data from previous surveys, and 70% are more likely to begin a training course as a result of COVID-19 and lockdown, which is great news for everyone here. Next slide, please, Andre. So we then looked at what was shifting that. So why were people looking at studying online, and why they wanted to kind of study during this time. Most of our training providers, I kind of have to caveat it, are online training providers, but we wanted to understand how students were reacting to the crisis. And we've seen an obvious uptick in online course inquiries. And actually, we feel that this is a bit of a watershed moment for the sector as a whole. So if you look at trends on Google for online learning keywords globally and in the UK, and combine that with this survey, it's clear that there is a bit of a revolution happening. And I really believe that once blended and online learning is embedded in our BAU as a society, and the sector as a whole is going to see huge growth in technological innovation. And the effects of this are going to be far reaching. And also you've got to remember that there are a lot of, if you're kind of future-proofing your business, there are a lot of children who are now learning remotely. There are a lot of students at university who are kind of like 18, 21, 22. And this is going to become a huge part of their learning moving forward. And it's going to be something that they expect. You've also got to think in terms of a B2B perspective, that learning and development, unfortunately, is one of the areas that gets cut in terms of like in-house training. But there will be a lot of businesses that will be looking at how they can make that a virtual experience and still provide training for their staff. Next slide, please. Okay, so we also asked students why the coronavirus crisis has made them more likely to begin a training course. And as shown in the results, there are a variety of reasons why COVID-19 has inspired student prospects to undertake further training. So obviously from having more time available, if you take the commute time out of your day to day, that for most people gives you an extra 2 hours a day, wanting to remain productive. But also really a big part of this is seeking to change careers, as the crisis has kind of left a lot of people furloughed, unemployed, or otherwise uncertain or excited about their future, and giving them time to really think about what they want to do. And it's kind of given people that time to do that. And it's clear that motivations have changed very quickly. Next slide, please. So for this, in terms of learner trends, I think it's really important that everyone should give thought around how to deliver the best possible courses to those who want to upskill in preparation for post-lockdown life. And the shift required to changes may include making big changes to your course content, delivery, and also your student support. And it's really important to make sure that the qualifications and modules and courses that you offer can really stand the test of the rapidly shifting job market. We looked at what is a barrier to student recruitment, and it's no surprise that financial uncertainty ranked high. Obviously, this has been a hallmark for COVID across the globe. But many other respondents also reported other obstacles, such as feeling too stressed or also not having enough time. So we appreciate that it's a really uncertain time for learners and for all of you. But the insights from the survey would hopefully generate all of our providers and you guys to kind of have it as a good starting point for you to reevaluate how best you can support students during this time. So as well as making sure that your course consultants and student admin teams are trained and prepared to handle difficult conversations and also adopt a more kind of holistic and nurturing approach where necessary. Other things that you could look into is kind of how much support is given to students facing personal challenges, whether certain parameters such as time to complete a course could be relaxed. Also, whether more flexible payment plans, if it's private, could be agreed on for the duration of the crisis. And this one's an interesting one. So obviously where people are feeling quite stressed, we know that there's been a massive insurgence in terms of mindfulness and meditation and yoga. And one idea that we've been suggesting to clients is that they could have an affiliate partnership, perhaps with one of those apps, and that app could be offered to a student as part of the course. And reevaluating all of this will serve as a great selling point and USP for your business. But most importantly, it will enable you to build a real genuine relationship with your students, which will ultimately benefit your brand and future enrollments.
Yeah, some fantastic insights there, Sarah Jane. I think you really hit the nail on the head and addressed kind of the elephant in the room of questions outstanding for a lot of folks in the audience is how do I really drive that value in that live online setting versus the traditional face-to-face course. Obviously, there's on the surface, it seems like there's a lot left to be desired in terms of that networking capability, that building relationship capability that obviously presents itself in the flesh in that traditional course setting. So yeah, I appreciate you diving in there for us. Let's go ahead and shift gears a little bit here and start fielding some questions from the audience. So as a reminder, you guys do have that Q&A tab down at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. Feel free to toss in some questions as they pop into mind, and we'll be kind of circulating those guys on the back end and hopefully addressing your questions for the full panel to discuss. That said, we do have a handful of questions kind of teed up from those of you that contributed to our request to submit some questions in response to our email. So first question up on the docket here is do you think students are going to return to face-to-face learning once the COVID-induced environment subsides? I think obviously we're seeing a big bit of a sea change, and it is obviously very much a watershed moment, as you alluded to, Sarah. So John, I'd love to hear your perspective on, what does that return to face look like, if and when?
Yeah, I guess there's two parts of it. One is whether it's actually possible. So, and I'm sure you've been listening to the news. So it feels like it's going to be something like 3 to 6 months, depending on, I guess, which sector you operate in terms of the training you deliver, whether it's going to be possible. Also, which geographical region. I think in New Zealand here and in Australia, it's going to be much faster because we're going to be opening up pretty soon. But I also hear that it's happening, the market and the ability to deliver face-to-face training is not too far away from the UK as well. But I imagine it's probably going to be 3 to 6 months away before it really gets back to normal. In terms of that delivery, I think that there will be a change in how courses are delivered, and there'll be more of an embrace to put that online element into it, like I mentioned it, as in the blended courses. So having elements of the course that you complete prior to the face-to-face sessions, and then even putting in, say, sessions like this after the course as additional sessions or activities around that, what was traditionally a 1 or 2 day course. So Yeah, that's my feel. So probably back to normal within 6 to 12 months, but normal being an extension of face-to-face to be more blended.
Yeah, and I think you really raise a great point there, John. Is really there's no time like the present to shift to that live online capacity and open up that whole new platform of potentially capturing an entirely new segment of the market, right? In those students who are more keen to pursue additional education through that live online setting. Sarah Jane, what are you seeing in the marketplace, and what are you thinking as far as that return to kind of traditional courses?
Yeah, I agree that it's tough, right? Because we don't know if there's going to be a second wave, and I think it's really important that businesses are able to pivot and investing in migrating your content online or having a blended offering. And also, if you look at kind of future trends in terms of where learning is going, kind of that module-based, self-paced learning, regardless of whether that's in classroom or online, is really important. And it's almost like you want to have a toolkit of different offerings for different people, so that you can really capture as much value of the market as you can.
Yeah, great. Thanks there, Sarah Jane. Let's kind of keep this a little bit high level. We're starting to get some additional questions. Before we get too granular, I'd like to address a couple of the bigger picture questions. So, Sarah Jane, I'm going to ask for you to respond here first, if you don't mind. How are training providers marketing their online courses, and how are they continuing to compete with all the free resources that are out there?
Yeah, so I think the best advice that I can give you is don't try to compete with the free resources. We don't have any free content on our website, and we don't work with training providers that have free content. So, there's in terms of your PPC activity and in terms of your SEO strategy, my advice would be don't use free as a sweetener, because you're never going to be able to compete with the likes of Coursera and FutureLearn and Udemy and all of those guys. And they're so prevalent in those sectors in terms of kind of getting students in from a free basis and then charging them on from a certificate model. So yeah, I think it's just about making sure that you really have defined what your value is and your USP. That you have, you're working with partners who really understand the PPC and the SEO landscape, so that you can kind of understand what your opportunity keywords are, that you're ranking highly for those, and that you are also authoritative enough to get a really good PPC CPA down too.
Yeah, cool. Shall I back that? I totally agree, Sarah Jane. I was also going to say, look, make sure you've got a niche that you're targeting. So, build quality content for a specific niche where the other sort of free service offerings aren't reaching out. So clearly there's going to be free training for generic, I guess, health and safety type courses. So really pick your niche and target that. The other thing I think is build value into your existing courses. You might have heard about this pedagogy where you talk about learning being broken into two parts, the know element and the do element. So the know element refers to learning that can be self-taught, that you can do by yourself. You can maybe complete an e-learning course and learn the material, read a website, watch a video. That's the know element. And so make sure people do that in their own time. And the do element is about where your learning is involved with interaction with other people, where you're learning off a presenter or facilitator, or you're learning off other people, you're collaborating. And so make sure that the time that you're spending with people in the classroom or live online is really focused on that element of learning that you couldn't otherwise do, that you can't otherwise pack into, say, an online course. And the other thing I think is to look at potentially running like private courses. A lot of our training providers have recognised the opportunity from a financial perspective for delivering custom on-site courses, and in fact that's where most of a good proportion of revenue is coming from. A lot of our training providers now, where they're tailoring a course for a particular client, it's delivered on site. Maybe it's still delivered live online now, but yeah, so I think that's something to consider. I certainly pulled out a comment you made too, Sarah Jane, about the fact that we don't know what's around the corner, and that we should have lots of different delivery methods. But we should be prepared for this to go back into lockdown too. So don't just sort of hold out and hope that it's all going to go back to normal. be prepared and have a lot of those different delivery methods lined up and give customers options. I saw some of the legal training providers now are doing both virtual, on-demand, private. They've got all those different delivery methods available to their clients to purchase. So, yeah, good advice there, I think.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, John. And I think that actually kind of segues nicely into the next big picture question is, what is next for training providers in the view of you as leading the training provider aspect of the business? And in a second, I'd love to hear the marketplace side.
John. Shall I answer that?
Yes,
yeah, cool. Very good stuff. So what next? I think we've talked about a lot about it. Live online, clearly we've talked about. I think the evolution of live online is going to be multi-session courses. So where people sort of quickly pivoted and they changed their face-to-face to live online, it was a day session to live online. They're recognising the limitations of this type of technology in terms of the ability for someone to concentrate for more than a couple of hours using live online. So I think you're going to see those courses broken down into multiple sessions if they're not already, where they're a little bit more easier to consume and manage. Moving into blended after that, we've talked to death, and it sounds like you guys are well on that path anyway. Probably something to look out to is buying content. So there's the likes of Go1, Udemy, Coursera, these content providers, and in fact content aggregators. So Go1 is actually a content aggregator. It's pulling material, so e-learning content from lots of different providers and making it available to you as training providers. So we're in the process actually of setting up a relationship with Go1 so that we can offer that same material for you. So that you can build in some of that material into your course. So might be easy to say, let's just make a course that's blended, but it's another thing to actually produce some of the content and material for that to make that possible. So I think, look out for those content providers and potentially what we're going to do in that space to make that available. I've already talked about CPD and that subscription model. I really think that's very relevant for accounting, lawyers, teachers, any professions that require continuing education. I think a subscription model is the future where companies can just subscribe to and have a fixed fee per year and that they can rely on a service to give them all the CPD points they need. Another one that I'm quite excited about personally, I've got involved with some of the technology, and that's virtual reality, VR. It's really coming of age. If you're in the health and safety sector or industry, you definitely should be looking at that. Oculus Quest, that's one of the new headsets that's just been released. Well, it's actually probably about 6 or 8 months ago now, but that's a real game changer where you've got the headset. It's all one device. You don't have to have a powerful PC. It's competitively priced. I think we're only waiting for content now, but I think in the next 24 to 36 months, that's really going to play a big part in health and safety, and then slowly it'll seep out into the other industries. So definitely keep your eyes open in that space. And if you get a chance to buy an Oculus Quest, buy one and have a look at it. It's quite amazing what's possible. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting some of the trends that we're kind of spotlighting there, John. From the marketplace side, Sarah Jane, I'd love to hear your thoughts there as well.
Yeah, I mean, ours is slightly skewed because we have so many training providers who are kind of online. So in terms of the conversations that we're having day to day, it is mainly in the online space. Our classroom-based clients have mobilized really quickly to making sure that they've got content that they can produce online. One client managed to turn around all their classroom-based content. They were an IT provider within about 3 weeks, which was really impressive to kind of pivot onto that. But yeah, I think if you think about students, and they are now, we've had a revolution in terms of work-life balance. So people are going to be going back to work used to, and probably there are going to be a lot more requests for flexible working, hot desking. Working from home is going to become a lot more prevalent when we kind of come out of this crisis. And I think learning has to change with that. And that's what people are going to expect. So having that kind of toolkit, as we've talked about, but that personalized learning experience was always a nascent trend anyway. If you look at Pearson's global learning survey, I think this has just accelerated that future development. And being able to adapt to that as a training provider is really important. And kind of John mentioned it, but if you're kind of looking at ed tech is, when you mentioned about virtual reality, ed tech is huge business. And similarly to med tech, I think they're two sectors which are going to see huge investment and growth over the next few years. And as a training provider, it's going to get pretty crowded. So you need to start building those relationships now and understanding what future is, and getting on top of it, because that will be the USPs. People will be starting to look at who offers the best learning analytics, who offers the best learning devices through virtual reality or AI, or there's all sorts of different streams that you could look down at. So I think that's really important for people to take into account.
Yeah, thanks for echoing that VR trend. That it's really the incredible software of kind of the next generation, right? The implications are really out there. It's amazing. So it sounds like general consensus is training providers, in order to remain competitive, we really need to settle into this being the new normal of being able to offer courses live online, and hopefully planning for somewhat of a return to the pre-COVID environment where we could offer those face-to-face courses. But assuming that this is the new normal and live online is kind of going to be the new status quo on a moving forward basis, are we expecting to see discounted prices as a result of removing students from the classroom? What is some general advice and thoughts on this?
Yeah, so we've actually had a behavioural economist consultant come into our business recently to help talk to us about kind of that discounting culture, which was really interesting. She was great. I'm a big believer in if you understand the value of your course and you can translate that value into the online proposition or into the blended proposition, then you should be charging the same. Obviously, you've kind of got a bit of a reduced overhead capacity because you're obviously not having people in the classroom, but you're still paying your tutors, you're still paying for all of the other materials that people need in order to take their course. But with all of the free courses that are out there, it's really easy to fall into that discounting culture. So as long as you can articulate and understand about behavioural economics and nudging people through that journey, actually you should stay strong with your pricing, is my advice.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, John. I'd love to. Sorry to cut you off. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you've got to make sure that you retain your value that you're delivering. But that means that you need to learn the technology and how to effectively deliver training over this technology. So I think, and there is a bit of skill too, making sure it's really interactive, making sure that the person who's facilitating the training really embraces the delivery method. You've got lots of different features there, the chat, you've got putting up your hand, clapping. There's this real ability to create a very interactive and engaging environment. And if you do that, then the value of the courses people will still retain the same amount of value, if not more value. So yeah, I think you certainly want to avoid trying to discount, rather just make sure you've got more value, maybe taking instead of, again, just going back to the same themes, building a course out, making it blended, adding value sort of interactions, say e-learning components to it, to complement the interactive live online. So try and build the value that you had in your classroom courses using this technology, and potentially building e-learning content for it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Ben. I was just going to say one other thing. We work with a lot of universities who obviously offer traditional campus-based degrees and postgraduate degrees, and obviously law diplomas and all of the kind of different law certifications that you need. And they charge exactly the same for their campus-based stuff as they do for their online versions. And that should follow through, I believe.
I mean, people are going to be willing to pay it, but you've got to obviously deliver the value. You've got to make sure that people are rating your courses and giving the good feedback to prospects who are looking at delivering your courses. So, yeah, it's making sure that you deliver good value, and then making sure you market that feedback that people are giving, that are suggesting that your courses delivered online provide really strong value. Then you can maintain your price points.
Yeah, wonderful insights there. So I think you guys both hit it on the head there, is that that perceived value, that content that we're delivering is not changing. The environment is changing, and that we're shifting gears a little bit in the classroom. But alongside all of that, how do we continue to create that much more of an engaging environment for the students? And both John and Sarah, you guys have both alluded to this, and maybe shrinking class sizes, controlling the time limits of these courses that are being held live online. How, aside from those things and the technology, what are your thoughts as far as how do we continue to deliver on that high value, high quality course that is traditionally offered in face-to-face settings? John?
Yeah, look, I think we've talked about some of the elements already, but probably to call out a few tools actually that could be relevant. So when it comes to converting some of your content, if you've got slides, PowerPoint slides that you normally deliver into the classroom, check out Articulate Rise 360. So Articulate Rise 360, that's a really good authoring tool, and that allows you to, I guess, take content, whether it's a video or images, whether it's PDF that you're already handing out or your PowerPoint presentation, and adapt it so that it's an online experience. It's used so it can be accessed on a mobile device, or it can be accessed through a browser. Really simple, easy to use tool that your staff can be trained up to use. You don't need a professional to do it. I would advise get some training beforehand though, so don't try and teach yourself, but get someone to get you started. But then something like that will allow you to build some of that material that you can then integrate into your course. So yeah, there's lots of other tools. We could probably do a session on all the different authoring tools, but that one I think is something nice and simple that allows you to produce some content pretty quickly. Yeah.
Sarah Jane, was there anything that you wanted to chime in there about?
No, I think John's kind of hit the nail on the head, really. It's just about understanding what technology is right for your business to be able to add that value.
Yeah, very good, cool. So about the technology, obviously Zoom has, with all of this additional publicity and that huge spike that they've seen in volume since December, John pointed out that figure earlier in the industry overview that they've seen 30x users spiking to 300 million daily. There's big news around Zoom, and some organizations, some of our audience members have just chimed in that their organizations have banned the use of Zoom due to potential security concerns. John, I think we had something kind of circulating internally a little bit about this earlier. Would you care to chime in on that?
Yeah, definitely. So we're doing a bunch of integration now and extending our integration that we already had with Zoom. And yeah, we're seeing exactly features that are addressing the security issue. So what's coming out with Zoom very soon is the requirement to have a password. So I think it's later this month, they're going to require anyone who's doing a course like this, live online session, to have a password or a PIN that will be sent out. And that's to prevent people from sort of jumping onto our session. So previously or currently, if you know the URL, then you can click on it and then jump into a course potentially when you haven't been invited. So there's security that's coming in terms of passwords. I think they've also done a lot of other security behind the scenes to make sure that it's not easy to hack into. So look, I think my feeling is that Zoom is here to stay. You need to move with it quickly, and embrace it. I think we've got to trust that the security elements are going to be addressed, but I certainly would not be holding back, because I think just the adoption is so rapid, and you have the potential to be left behind if you don't to move quickly onto this technology. So yeah, I think there are concerns about security. It's great to see they're spending so much money in addressing that, and it's going to be trickled right through to what we're doing with our integration.
Cool. Okay. I imagine that you're seeing similar sentiment parallels in the Candlefox marketplace, Sarah, as far as Zoom concerns, security concerns, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and also our head of tech, Trudy, has already implemented the password protection update for us. So even our internal meetings, we're making sure that everything is password protected before we're kind of going in. So, and I think, look, everyone is learning this new position that we're in. And I don't think Zoom were anticipating the huge amount of traffic that they were going to see. So that, for them to be able to mobilize this quickly and to listen to what consumers are telling them is really important. and they seem to be doing a really good job of that.
So I just want to call out one thing, actually, Ben, with Zoom that I've really noticed, because I've been on family Zoom meetings and company Zoom meetings. What I've really noticed is people's comfort in actually participating in Zoom meetings. That's one thing, but also cameras. I think cameras are really key. We're probably going to call that in at some point, but I think if you're running training, you've got to make sure you've got a camera. People get a lot out of seeing your face, your expression. There's a connection there, so they're quite critical, and that's both for the presenter and the learners as well. So you can see how they're reacting, how they're feeling. All the facial expressions tells a lot about what they're experiencing during a course. But I think this use of Zoom means that people have got cameras, that you see a lot of people are using cameras, and they're also setting them up well too. Whereas I remember participating in webinars in the old days, and the camera would be miles away from the person. They'd be in a small little blob in the side corner of a screen. I think it's great to see people actually putting the camera in the right space, so their picture's nice and clear, they're in the centre, and I think all that surveillance makes that connection, that personal connection, so much more effective. And so.
Yeah,
Cool.
I agree, John. And also some of our kind of training providers have set up kind of separate studios where they deliver the training from. So they've got the right lighting, and as you say, kind of investing in that camera technology is really important, so that it's a really crisp, clear picture, and also that you've got the best broadband connection that you can possibly afford.
Yeah, the Logitech 920, camera, I'm sure there's lots like it, but that was another breakthrough I found. And that's what we've got right here, and it's a wide angle. So a lot of the latest ones are all wide angle, but certainly the Logitech 920 or something along those lines, that wide angle means that you get a bit of picture too. Cool.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we got some Logitech folks on the line.
Yeah.
Product plug there, John. We appreciate that.
I think it's the point that it's a wide angle. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, but both you guys raise a really good point in trying to create that streamlined and aligned physical environment through the webcam and live online circumstance classroom that we're operating within. Sarah, I've got a good question from you that came in from one of our audience members. How do you see remote proctoring tech, which is essentially allowing for students to take an exam at a remote location? Is this kind of that longer term solution? Do we expect this to kind of... Yep.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our training providers already offer that. So our biggest sector on our website is actually IT and tech. So obviously they're early adopters of this in terms of how they can students can pass their exams and their certificates. I think it's if you can find the right partner to be able to do it and you feel secure in that, there are lots of different ways that you can use that. And also, you've got to think about recruitment as a whole. So kind of assessments that people have to do in terms of online assessments before they go through to second stages and third stages and interview process. There are different rules and ways that you can set them up so they are a fair ground to assess people. I'm a big advocate of it. And sometimes we might not have another option.
That's a really good question, I think. It's an excellent question. Microsoft, for example, allow you to sit your tests. They've been doing that for quite a while. They've got quite a structured approach to it where you, I think, have to show the person. So it's almost like a one-on-one where the person actually has to be shown where you're sitting the test. It's very descriptive of how, the computer that you use, making sure that no one else is in the same room. So, and then the actual technology behind running the test. So I think the technology is there. It's going to be interesting and exciting to sort of see that adopted in other sectors. But yeah, I think without question, that ability to be able to do a test remotely is going to become more relevant and more prevalent, I guess, in time to come. Because why would you really want to be able to travel into a room to do a test when you've got a computer? So it'll just be a case of making sure that they're secure, clearly, that someone else can't sit the test for you. Good question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you kind of lead nicely into this one on that note there, John. For the industries that do require, and necessitate for that compulsory face-to-face human element, something like health and safety or patient handling training. And I think you've kind of alluded to this, both you and Sarah, throughout the conversation. But how do you foresee these sorts of industries responding to, that quote unquote compulsory face-to-face element?
Yeah, I want to call out that VR stuff again. I think this really is amazing, that technology. And there's two types of VR. There's the 360-degree video where you can sort of look around, but you can't move around. And that's really relevant. So you can be put into a place where, say, you're in an office environment and a person has, say, collapses, and you've got to work out what they're doing, how you should respond from a health and safety point of view, from a first aid point of view. And it's such a real environment. It's so realistic. I think it's going to be tremendously effective. And also I saw another one where you're dealing with conflict, where an employee is showing aggression towards you, and you really feel like you're there, you're part of it, and you've got this ability to interact with a virtual environment. You can be asked, what would you like to do next, and follow a path. So I really think that ability to simulate real life face-to-face training is just going to become more and more relevant in all the sectors. It's just going to be a case of waiting for the content to be created. The technology's there now, the price point's there now. Those headsets I was talking about are $800 or so, $700, $800 when you think of what a mobile phone costs. Yeah, it's exciting stuff, I think.
And I'd echo that as well. So previous to working at Candlefox, I used to work in the graduate recruitment space and help student recruitment for big graduate recruiters and large firms. And, even 5 years ago, we were talking about virtual reality, and some of the big firms started to use it in terms of assessing students. So putting them in certain situations and scenarios that wouldn't be safe for them to do as graduates coming into programs who are uninsured and those types of things. So kind of the army, a lot of the big engineering firms and the kind of like the subsea engineering firms would put students in situations to assess them. And again, it's about future-proofing your business, right? Because these guys are going to be coming up the professional ranks and will be looking for that type of training in the future.
Yeah, one thing I think I've seen too is that there's going to be a stepped approach to it. So a lot of the content that's been created, say for a VR environment, they're also creating that same content in a interactive, just desktop environment as well. They created the same sort of training, but they're doing it in a traditional desktop. It's just that VR is a step ahead. So they're recognising the ability to create training material that's really interactive on your desktop or on your mobile phone, and then the next step is for that same sort of experience just to be taken to another level from a learning outcomes point of view to be VR. So yeah, I think that's, if you look at that space, look at, I guess, a stepping stone, because not everyone's going to have that technology straight away. So yeah, I guess another element you could talk about is the gamification, turning training into gaming. So a lot of the VR component of it can be gaming. What do you do next? And then you do something, and then it responds, and you've got to choose another path, and you go down a path. It's like creating a game out of it, or an interaction out of it.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how the VR element comes into play over, of course, the next 6, 12, 18 months with respect to training. Sarah, you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier at a very high level in your industry overview. But I'd love to hear from the marketplace perspective again. What are some particular courses and specific sectors of training that you're really seeing an uptake in?
Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of in March, it was very much everyone was looking for, if you look at Google Trends, everyone was looking for kind of edutainment, as we've kind of coined it at Candlefox. So kind of short courses that they can access surrounding cooking, learning languages, just small bite-sized things that they can access to kind of give them something to do in the evenings. But I've kind of done a lot of reviews with my clients over the last couple of weeks, and Rob, my head of sales, has done the same. And that we kind of saw a dip in March. But as we've kind of come into April, most of our clients in terms of the professional development space have seen a huge rise in applications and people wanting to enroll. One of the things that we're kind of just keeping an eye on is cancellations, because it might be that people have gone, oh yeah, I'm going to do this course and it's going to be great, and then maybe kind of have that kind of might panic afterwards and go, I don't think I can do this, or I don't think I can cope. But it's important that training providers can coach people through that, and that the admissions teams are again trained to be able to do that, because it's a different kind of conversation. But yeah, I think because a lot of people have been furloughed. If you look in the UK, 1 in 4 people have been furloughed, and have more time, but also still have a little bit of job security and have salaries coming in. If you're someone like me, I have 2 children, one's 1 and one is 5. And just not having to pay nursery fees for the last 2 months has actually meant that I've got a lot more expendable cash. And if you've been furloughed and your business has been put on hold for a temporary period, and you've got additional cash in terms of money in the bank because you're not paying childcare fees, doing a professional development course is huge. So there's 2 sides to it. There's the short course space, which is just booming. If you look at Coursera, I think they had 500,000 registrations for their mindfulness course in one weekend in March, which was phenomenal. And the likes of Udemy are also doing very well. But I would say all of our training providers, nobody is kind of pulling back budgets. Everyone's had a really successful April. So that upper end has performed really well. And then we also had a new university came on during the crisis, London Met, who we actually were kind of like, it's probably not going to perform particularly well. We were really concerned about them coming on site because they are blended as well. And they capped out, they spent their whole budget. So that was great.
Mm. Yeah. Another, just to call out, not quite on the subject, but in terms of demand for courses, I've also heard that there's going to be a real bent-up demand for a lot of courses, depending on your sector, but certainly for the professions where people have to do a certain amount of training, or they have to renew their certification compliance course. The governments and the institutions have allowed or stretched out that requirement for renewal. And of course, as soon as the market goes back in, the industry starts up again, then you're going to see all these people who are going to need to, I guess, do their renewals or the certificates. So I think there's going to be bent up demand for a lot of courses, probably in 6 to 12 months. Once everything's back online.
And I think what I would also say to everyone, because I'm saying this to all of my partners, is when lockdown eases, there is going to be a period of time, a couple of weeks, maybe a month, where actually no one's thinking about training anymore. They're seeing their family, they're going out, they're just enjoying the freedom that they've suddenly got back. But it will only be temporary. So just stay strong, weather that storm, everything's going to be okay. People will come back to it. If you look at the Google Trends from Italy and China, and learning in general and online learning, obviously it's peaked, it dropped during lockdown rate relaxation, but then it's carried on at a higher base level than it was for years previous to that. And I think that's really encouraging. I think one of the things that's happened out of COVID-19 is people just evaluating being in control of their own destiny and their own learning.
Yeah, awesome insights there, Sarah. Thanks for sharing. We're winding down on the clock here. John, I think one of the last questions on everybody's mind is we're talking about shifting to live online. We're talking about getting courses available online. We're using Zoom. When is the Arlo and Zoom integration going to be ready? When is that rolling out to the people, John?
Yeah, look, actually, it is a little bit to do with security. We decided we were all ready to launch it, and then that requirement for password came up. So, look, it's about a week away, from what I understand. We just had to put a little bit of a delay. We wanted to make sure that set password feature was in the release, so that people didn't have to go and apply passwords later on. So about 7 to maybe 15 days away, hopefully, maybe even a chance sooner. We'll see.
And we'll definitely be sending out some copy and marketing emails and in-app shout outs and that sort of stuff to keep the client base up to speed with the rollout of that product. Yeah.
And probably also just to call out that it's an iterative process. We're agile, if you didn't already know. So the next release will have a certain amount of functionality. The release after that's going to have multi-session functionality. Then we're going to have automated attendance functionality. So the actual rollout of all this, the new implementation of Zoom and all these new functionality will be over the next couple of months. So
cool. Yeah. All righty. Well, last couple of minutes here. Let me get the PowerPoint pulled back up. For those of you who are joining us from outside the Arlo family, maybe coming in from Candlefox, thanks again for hopping on. Next steps are, if you guys are interested in getting a demo, starting a free trial, spinning up the product for yourself and your own business, seeing what's available within Arlo, head over to arlo.co. Either Andre or Mel will hop on into the chat and distribute some links. We'll also be distributing some emails afterwards with relevant links. As far as the existing customers, look for that email as well. There's going to be a calendar invite to book some time with either Ezra or myself. We'd love to kind of walk you through how do we get from the now to point B. What does that look like? How do we make that successful transition for you and your business and your clients to fully support you in running a successful live online business and or e-learning. We've also got a fantastic COVID resource center available for reference on Arlo's website. Keeping a lookout for the links to that as well. We've got a slew of articles, case studies, guides, videos. This is our third or fourth panel in this whole series that we're running around shifting to live online. So just a wealth of knowledge from a whole spectrum of industries and training providers and that sort of stuff. So definitely leverage that. And I think kind of in summation, based on the conversation with Sarah, with John, we met with somebody else from Candlefox, Claudia, this morning. The time is now to make that move to live online training. So get in touch with us. We'd love to help you out. We've got, I'd love to hear from Sarah for a couple quick points, and then we'll send you guys on your way.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ben. And thanks everyone for joining us today. So yeah, it's been really informative, I think, for everyone. And we're happy to have a conversation with anyone that was here today, and also to share a bit more detail around our survey results and also kind of what other training providers are doing, and hopefully give you some consultation on that. And also, if you're interested in finding a new channel in terms of student recruitment and marketing, we're happy to help with that. So if you can email myself, eshday@candlefox.com or rob@candlefox.com, we'll set up a meeting or a chat and do what we can to support you.
Wonderful. Sarah and John, thanks again for taking the time out of your morning, your evening, to take part in this panel discussion. I think it was really insightful. We had a pretty good turnout, had a bunch of good questions, great discussion. Thanks to you all in the attendance for showing up and taking time out of your days. And we will be distributing the recording of this webinar as well as from our New Zealand session. And don't be shy in reaching out. Thanks again for showing up today, guys.
All right, thanks, Ben. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, John.
Oh, on your way out, attendees, we forgot we got one more surprise poll coming your way. Looking to put together the pieces for some subsequent panel discussions, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on what you guys want to hear. Thanks again, guys.
Okay.